Uh, Good morning. Jambo. To our visitors, welcome to Kenya. I'm here actually to give a few remarks on behalf of our ministry and on behalf of our minister, Honorable Simon Chelugoi, who is the Minister for Cooperative and MSME Development. And as a good messenger, allow me to read as a brief note. So, ladies and gentlemen, the MSME sector is the backbone of the Kenyan, as well of Kenya, as well as that of East Africa partner states, and its significance cannot be overemphasized. In Kenya, the sector contributes about 80% of the total labor workforce, employing over 14.9 million people, with majority being women and youth. The sector contributes to about 33.8% of the GDP. It is therefore imperative that we consider access to affordable finance, technology, customer-centric business models, enabling environment and strategic partnerships as crucial element for MSME growth and drive inclusion. I challenge IYBA Team Europe Initiative to consider these critical elements through sustainable and high-impact programs aimed at transforming the MSME economy in the country. The government of Kenya is devoting substantial efforts to grow Kenya's cooperative and MSME ecosystem because it has established the Ministry for Cooperative and MSME not only to realize synergies between the two sectors, but to create an enabling environment for them to thrive through the formulation and implementation of appropriate policy, legal, and institutional framework. This is geared towards the achievement of the country's development blueprint of Vision 2030, the Kenya Kwanza Plan, the East African Community Vision 2050, Africa's Union Agenda Vision 2063, and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal. The President of the Republic of Kenya on 30th November 2022 launched the Hustler Fund, which is a flagship program of the government's manifesto that will go a long way in realizing financial inclusion for millions of Kenyans who would otherwise be excluded from the mainstream financial system. The fund will have 4 products to cater for personal financing, the micro, the MSME, and the startups. To date, the fund has disbursed, as of today, 9 a.m. morning, the fund had disbursed a total of 19.8 billion to 18.9 million customers, million Kenyans, and the saving to date is closing to 1 billion, with a repeat customer base of 6.2 million. This is in under about 82 days since the launch. So we shall be launching micro and group loans, which will be a second product of the fund at the end of this month. The government of Kenya has also prioritized the digital superhighway and creative economy as a key pillar in bottom-up economic transformation agenda. The visionary agenda of the digital superhighway and creative economy seeks to create an empowered and digitized society for competitiveness and sustainable development. The government is also in the process of enacting the startup bill that mainly seeks to provide a framework that fosters a culture of innovative thinking and entrepreneurship. Furthermore, the bill is being developed to detail the process of registration of startups and provide a framework for linkage of startups with the private sector, financial institution, investors, and research organization will be provided by the launch of the startup fund. So by the end of this financial year, around May there, we'll be launching the startup fund. Further, the government is empowering institutions that favor the establishment and growth of MSMEs by subsidizing their formalization, providing training and facilitating the protection of intellectual property of innovation by local MSMEs and research institutions. Cooperatives and MSME have huge potential to play a transformative role to combat exclusion, but the speed and complexity of new innovations can be a challenge for regulators. Regulation should not stifle innovation, but at the same time, it should protect consumers and the stability of system, quite a balancing act. It's important to recognize the power of having regulators and innovators find solutions together to tackle risk and accelerate progress. First, we must encourage people to pursue STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, careers in order to enter technical industries. This is critical, especially at a time when it's universal agreement that the doors to high tech should be open to more communities. Raising awareness and creating role models will help achieve this aim. Second, we need and timely in-depth analysis on the whole entrepreneurship landscape. The dynamism is large and ever increasing. By having insights on who is winning, who is trading slowly, and who is losing, we can design better policies that support innovators. We are trying to achieve this with our State Department of MSME. However, this should not be restricted to high-tech parks, major enterprises or multinational corporations. Cooperation between scientists and grassroots innovators is critical in promoting need-based rather than paper-based research. As the saying goes, necessity is the mother of innovation. During the pandemic, we saw several ideas by small businesses with strong scaling potential to tackle severe socioeconomic environment challenges in this country. Some of the innovation actually helped to alleviate the strain of lockdown by developing food ATMs, employing robot technology, and developing applications to connect people delivering services with those in need. Such an open innovation system needs an enabling innovation culture that encourages taking risk and embracing mistakes, particularly in public sector. This attitude should be institutionalized and rewarded at all levels, and this is what the ministry is actually doing. Given the digitalization of management system changes and investment in human resource to increase productivity, we as the ministry will invest in these processes. Creative partnership in financing can help innovators secure funds for this important investment, and this is what we are looking forward as a ministry to partner with the Team Europe initiative. In summary, we welcome investment that are enabling digital transformation that will bridge the gaps in infrastructure, connectivity, and capability to create a sustained societal impact in the country. How quickly we accelerate this intervention in cities and communities across the country will help us industrialize Kenya and industrialize Africa as a whole. I therefore look forward to collaborating with IYBA and Team Europe Initiative to empower startup MSMEs through skills development from early stage startups to established SMEs. The ministry will provide the necessary enabling environment for this partnership to thrive. Thank you very much, Honorable Simon Chelugui.
Thank you, PS, for the very impressive data we just heard and the work of the ministry. Now let's hear from Brussels, from the European Union, from Mr. Antti Karunen. Over to you.
Thank you, Rene, and Honorable Principal Secretary, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's really very encouraging. Thank you very much, Principal Secretary, for your opening remarks. And we are equally really encouraged by the emphasis that the President of the Republic this morning put into the SMEs, and it is the startups and it is the young businesses where the future lies. So therefore, it's really a pleasure to speak to you a few words about our flagship initiative, the Team Europe initiative on investing in young businesses, or TEI YBA, as we say. It's a flagship because it's already made quite considerable progress over the last years, and has already enabled both the European and the African actors to pursue something that is a common goal of supporting early stage businesses and entrepreneurs in Africa with a particular focus on women. And as we know, Africa is really the continent of opportunity. With a young population, bringing with creativity and innovation, it also holds so much promise in terms of whether it's natural resources or green energy, as we have heard today, in view of a green transition. However, there are also, of course, challenges. The population in Africa is on the increase, which will mean that the rate at which jobs are created over the years will have to accelerate so that we avoid unemployment and that we can create a perspective that the young people need for their future. And there are some external factors that have, of course, been challenging: the pandemic, the Russia's war in Ukraine, which have led to rising food and fuel prices and impacted Africa, deepening some of the structural challenges that perhaps otherwise the continent would have already begun to tackle. So what is the EU's response to this? We, in a very short way, would say it is through our global gateway strategy. That is a strategy that will accelerate Africa's strategic self-reliance, building on green technologies, the digital economy, economic integration, health, education, and food security. And it's really our offer to Kenya and other African countries to stimulate investment in infrastructure so that we can accelerate the green and digital transition and invest in human development, and do it also in a rules-based, sustainable, and human-centered way. So the IYBA initiative is part of the Global Gateway. It brings together institutional, financial, technical resources. In fact, it brings together 11 European Union member states. And in total, it comprises more than 390 million in programs, this is euros, in providing technical and financial support to early stage businesses in Kenya. And so it's really also a pleasure to see so many of the Team Europe members in the room today. It's also a pleasure to have the European Investment Bank, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, as well as the EDFI, the Association of European Development Finance Institutions, as part of this Team Europe effort. So together we can mobilize financial instruments, we can do technical assistance, and we can drive initiatives that build a strong entrepreneurship ecosystem, which combines our resources, helps us coordinate better what we do, and therefore brings greater impact, innovation, consistency that would not be possible without such a team effort. So indeed, it's not a program in itself, it's rather a way of working together more effectively. And that is something that brings a huge amount of added value. It's composed of innovative programs to test new ways of working that have potential to be scaled up. A good example, I would say, is a program that has just started. It's called IYBA Seed, Support for Ecosystem Entrepreneurship Development. And of course, with the IYBA, we have the beauty of being able to link this to SME financing, access to finance instruments. And in this context, could mention, for example, the work that the FMO is doing on the Nazira initiative in Kenya on access to finance for SMEs. So beyond these programs, we have also set up 2 working groups to address issues that are related to access to finance for early stage businesses and entrepreneurship in Africa. And the first one of these is why we examine why all too often the African entrepreneurs and early stage businesses struggle for access to finance, and why existing financial instruments are not reaching to them. And this working group has just approved a specific commissioned report. And in 2023, it will start working on possible innovative solutions to reverse this trend that of course, we must very much try to tackle. The second working group is on focusing on women's economic empowerment. Its members reflect the additional obstacles that women face as entrepreneurs, which includes less access to finance beyond their own savings, for example, regulatory, social norms that may limit their ability to grow their companies. The idea is that this working group would produce a report on these constraints and then seek to find solutions. So you see, it's a rather encompassing effort that we are doing, not just finance, but also looking at the investment climate and the obstacles that specifically the young businesses and women entrepreneurs face. So we hope that this is a starting point for a new way of working effectively together with public and private institutions in Kenya. And in doing so, we really want to promote a more conducive entrepreneurship ecosystem, which empowers young and women entrepreneurs in particular, so that they can thrive and help creating a more sustainable economy in Kenya. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director Karunen. I think you stimulate interest in what in practical is this initiative, which is quite broad. So I can't wait for the panel then to come and tell us more in detail. But before that, importantly, in the Team Europe spirit, I would like to pass the word to the Deputy Ambassador of Germany, Thomas Wimmer.
Thank you very much, Irene. The Honorable Susan Mangini, Principal Secretary, State Department for MSMEs, Excellencies present, Director International Partnerships from Brussels, Antti, Irene, the Head of Cooperation, EU. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of a strong team from GIZ, German Development Cooperation, who are strongly involved in the implementation of what we are launching today. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, because since 2 minutes it's good afternoon. The honors were too long. This year, Kenya will celebrate 60 years of independence. In 1963, Kenya could finally rid herself of colonial rule. And 2023 also marks the 60th anniversary of the partnership between Kenya and Germany. Germany was the first country to officially recognize Kenya as a sovereign nation. And since then, since 1963, we've enjoyed an ever stronger and ever closer partnership and friendship with Kenya. Since independence, Germany has supported Kenya in defining its development agenda, making it a driving force in the region and globally. Accelerating job creation and reviving the economy are among the aligned top priorities of both our governments. MSMEs play a significant role in creating employment and driving economic growth, as we've already heard also from the Honorable PS. Overall, Germany contributes more than 150 million euros, which is in 20 billion shillings, to strengthening the Kenyan economy by supporting MSMEs, by supporting the TVET and skills system, digital transformation and international trade. MSMEs, the PS has said it, account for over 80% of private sector enterprises and 93% of total labor force in the Kenyan economy. To continue realizing a strong economic growth, currently averaging 5 to 6%, adequate financing for investments and day-to-day business operations for MSMEs is key. Okay. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as a member of the EU, cooperation with the EU and our fellow member states is a substantial and integral part of our portfolio. Germany, therefore, is part of the two Team Europe initiatives, Green Deal and Human-Centered Digitalization, as well as of this new regional initiative, Invest in Young Businesses in Africa. This initiative, which we're launching today, perfectly aligns with the priorities of Kenya, the priorities of the EU, and the priorities of Germany in promoting new, young, and also women-led companies. It is initiated in recognition of the fact that the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Kenya and Africa is growing steadily and is a key growth driver for the continent, particularly in terms of decent job creation. We are convinced that this initiative plugs into Kenya's policy objectives and priority areas of building a qualified and competent youth workforce and the promotion and development of entrepreneurship. Extending the financial and technical support available to these businesses and strengthening the ecosystem of supporting structures such as incubators and accelerators through this initiative will also see more women employed or with increased income. We are grateful to the European Commission for promoting the Team Europe initiatives, and we are happy to take part in these. We look forward to an ever closer economic and political partnership between the EU and Kenya based on our shared values and interests. Thank you very much. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much, distinguished members of the Inauguration Committee, I can call it. Now that we have launched officially the initiative, we leave the space to the panel and to a true moderator. We can maybe take a picture before. We also have a table with us now on the stage. So thank you very much. We'll just take a picture and we move on to the substance, which is the most important. Thank you.
I think
afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I know that we're excited about the last session, but could we just keep the excitement for later, for the break? Lots to talk about. So as Irene said, and thank you, Irene, for that wonderful session. We're about to get into the meat, although some people would argue that the earlier session was the meat, but we will see. So this afternoon, I am joined by an incredible group of panelists. These are experts. Some of them are entrepreneurs. These are people and representing organizations that have been doing incredible work supporting entrepreneurship. So I'd just like to start by going around, with some introduction. So Ian Lawrenson is the executive director and partner at Growth Africa. Growth Africa has been doing tremendous work around supporting entrepreneurs in terms of starting, growing, and scaling businesses. If there's anyone who knows anything about working with entrepreneurs, then it is Ian and the team at Growth Africa. We also have Diana Geshaga. Hi, Diana. And we love the energy. We love the energy. Diana works on access to finance with an organization called Private Equity Support. I got it right. We will hear more about the great work that Diana and her team are doing around financial, providing access to finance to entrepreneurs. We also have Magdalene Chepkemoi. Hi, Magdalene. I'm always excited to see Magdalene because we tend to talk to and work with people in Nairobi. Magdalene, whenever we have forums like this, Magdalene has to travel all the way from Eldoret. and so I'm always really, really happy to have her joining the conversation. Magdalene leads the work at EldoHub, but is also with the Association of Countrywide Hubs. Is it the Association of Countrywide Hubs, right? Fantastic. And then we have Dr. Laila Masharia. Is there anyone in the room who doesn't know Dr. Masharia? Perhaps we should just move on. But Dr. Masharia is an investor, she's an entrepreneur, she's really a leading light to us. She's also the chair of the Africa Digital Media Initiative. She's also the chair of the just launched Aspen Leadership Initiative. And she will tell us a little bit about what she does. So I'll stop there with her because it's a lot. And then Bernd Lachmer. We were arguing about whether I should introduce him by his second name, but I think I got it right? Who is going to talk to us more about why be. I'm very bad with acronyms. I would rather say investing in young businesses in Africa. Are we agreed? So, Laila, let's start with you. We've been here before. And it feels like we're running on a treadmill. Entrepreneurs are still not getting access to finance. The M in the SME is still missing. We've got huge failure rates. What are we not doing right from where you sit? And what can initiatives such as investing in young businesses in Africa do?
Yeah, so that question is the topic of a conference, but I'll try and summarize. I think there's two sets of issues. Indeed, we've been here before, and I think a lot of people in this room have been doing this work for years, if not decades. So what is it that we're learning? I think on one hand, there's things that are structural in the economy that have to do with the business environment, with policies, with macroeconomic factors that we can do something about by advocating collaboratively. But those are the things that we would say are not always within the zone of influence of an entrepreneur. However, on the other side, I think the real challenge to us today is really to learn from all these decades of experience, to be very data-driven, to be really honest about what we're seeing, and to adjust our programs and strategies to reflect that. I think so the first thing is really around being data-driven, being very, very disciplined around how we collaborate together to learn from to share lessons from what we're learning. There's been some studies that have been shown, for example, that show that what really works, there's a lot of business support organizations, as we know, but what really works sometimes is peer-to-peer learning. The training that is most useful is that is very targeted and real time as people learn from each other, entrepreneurs learn from each other. We hear a lot that entrepreneurs on the continent, especially women entrepreneurs, we're over-mentored and under-financed. So people want to train us and train us and train us. But what we need is someone to write a check, a big check. So we have a lot of challenges with collateral. This continues to be an issue. Some of that, again, is structural. We have the banks are accountable to, regulators and to the public, so they can't just go wild and lend to anybody they want. But we do know that the collateral issue continues, especially as a business starts to pick up momentum, to be a ceiling where entrepreneurs throw up their hands and they can't really get the support they need. So what can an initiative like this do? I was pleased to see that financing, writing those checks is part of the deal in this program. It was good to see that there is some mentorship, but we would again challenge that it be peer-to-peer and that we really give entrepreneurs the respect that they deserve. Building a business in Africa is not a walk in the park. It's not the same as building a business anywhere else. And an entrepreneur in any place deserves respect. And sometimes what really helps is having people who've walked that road on the other side of the table as you give the technical assistance, because you might have your advice might have more of a ring of truth, when you really understand some of the tough trade-offs that are done. When we talk about de-risking, what can we do about the collateral problem? I think social impact funding and donor or multilateral funding can really help with that de-risking problem. So if there's ways that you can do co-guarantees or find ways that can take the edge off when entrepreneurs are trying to get funded, that's a very important role that can be played so that that group does move from that small level to the middle, this missing middle we're talking about. And after that, they'll be able to access more commercial funding and they'll be on their way. So respect for entrepreneurs, being data-driven, writing checks directly to the entrepreneur, trusting the entrepreneur. These are all things that could be a departure from the way we've been doing things in the past.
Thank you so much, Laila. Can we all get our checkbooks out and talk to a woman entrepreneur after this session? But no, I'm serious. So having conversations, for example, with Laila, I know is walking the talk around writing checks and the role of angel investing. And that's picking up momentum quite a bit. But as she said, we probably need to unpack that over a 3-day workshop. But yeah, let's come to you. I think reflecting on some of those issues that and very valid interventions that Laila has talked about. You have been working with entrepreneurs in terms of getting them ready, both in terms of the skills, the capacity, that they need to grow, to start, grow, and sustain their businesses and even get them to thrive. You've seen many cohorts, you've seen many entrepreneurs. What are some of the knowledge and organizational gaps that is preventing entrepreneurs from leveraging a lot of these resources? And Mark, you in Nairobi, the Nairobi now is not the Nairobi of 1992. We've got lots of accelerators, lots of incubators. And when you look at the curriculums for all these incubators, all these accelerators, some of them are different, some of them are new. Please come in and tell us, what is the problem? From the experience that you've had working with the many different cohorts of entrepreneurs.
I think we're still learning our way forward. So I think it's also fair that maybe not say the problem, but I think we are a very young industry and we're organically trying to find a way forward. And perhaps sometimes have been leaning too much towards an American model, taking and seeing how we could just redeploy it here without contextualizing it. And I think those are some of at the very core of where we may need to work harder, is to help our entrepreneurs with more, and I think it was mentioned this morning as well, practical business skills and tools. And I think especially analytical tools. So that critical thinking, analytical skills, and where I understand my business enough to understand where are my challenges, my opportunities in my business that can help me grow, as opposed to a very prescriptive model. And I think in the past, we've had a lot of classroom training, and that was then labeled as this or that. And I think we need to figure out what stages or what kind of approach needed. And we have a lot of entrepreneurs that become seasoned enough that they don't need training anymore. They need a different approach. And I think it's also fair enough, and maybe tapping a little bit the fact that there is a finance component in IYBA as well, is that we need to ensure that our entrepreneurs are ready, that they know what that money is going to be invested into, and that we walk in and work with them to make sure the money is well deployed. Because we have a lot of entrepreneurs who come and the default is give me money. Then it's the solution, it's a Swiss Army knife to everything. And it is, if to some degree, if you know where to spend it and to spend it well. But I think we sometimes maybe assume too much that that is what entrepreneurs defaultly know, without anybody actually having walked with them in terms of if you had this money, what and where would it be spent? And it goes back to this critical thinking, understanding their business enough to know where is it that the money is put to best use.
Thank you, Ian. I think you're totally right in terms of some of those challenges that you're seeing, and particularly I want to pick up on because you touched on a very, very important point, especially when you're thinking about the type of support that works and the need to tailor, because all these entrepreneurs are coming out of different backgrounds, different systems, different, not just education systems, but different economic contexts. And then we've also got the needs of men and women. There's a certain nuance there around support that is provided for women and support that is provided for men. And that how also affects the outcomes. So I'll come back to you as you wrap up, but I thought that bit you raised about tailored support, I think was quite interesting. So Ben, let me come to you, because this is your day. We are here. We are here to see the launch of investing in young businesses in Africa. So I think the first thing is just listening to some of the interventions from Lila, the need for data, writing checks, tailored support, just getting that sense from what's been working and some of what's not been working, and possibly how do we move forward. What is new that investing in young businesses in Africa is coming to tell us many years later? What's different, and how do you see this initiative as kind of filling the gaps that are there, just listening to Leila and Ian. So I'll let you obviously tell us more about investing in young businesses in Africa, but more importantly, what is it doing differently?
Okay, thank you very much. And maybe I start with a very quick introduction of the approach, and then I come back to your question. So I think the idea of the investing in young business in Africa seed project is basically to address three topics. The first one is on the ecosystem. So what can the ecosystem as such learn? And this tackles also the question that was raised by Ian about what kind of products are we addressing? What kind of services is the ecosystem providing? So it's a lot of ecosystem support, but not for individual providers, but for like peer learning among the ecosystem so that they can really improve the services that are available for businesses, being it technical support and probably also then financial support. That's number one. Number two is looking at the regulatory environment. So what kind of challenges are young businesses facing when it comes to the rules and regulation in a country? And we know from Kenya, but also from many other countries, that there are still a lot of challenges addressed when it comes to young businesses. And how you can thrive as a young business. And the third area that is also very important, I think, is the question of culture. So what is the business culture that you have in a country? And this is also an approach and something the initiative would like to address. And I remember last week when I had an exchange with PS Susan, she also addressed this question of the culture and how they want to tackle it also in Kenya from a very early stage, that you need to have a culture of economics and culture of entrepreneurship and culture of to thrive your business. So this is the idea. And what we will try to do differently is that we will address all these different layers that I've just mentioned equally and at the same time, because you can find a lot of interventions on access to finance for women entrepreneurs or startup support, or maybe also cultural aspects of economic system strengthening. But you can hardly find an approach where you try to address all these different layers at the same time. And this is the idea behind it, that we address it also by using the knowledge of many, many different implementers from the European side. So it's not only the European Union and the delegation here, but there are many actors, many European member states that are contributing to it. And we will work very closely with the Kenyan ecosystem to implement the project. This is the approach.
Fantastic. So I hear, the fact that partnerships would be quite central to this approach, working with Kenyan ecosystem actors. And I guess for me, this then also brings me to, which I think is actually one of the most interesting things about your initiative. Like from the word get-go, there is a focus on youth and women. So we'll come back to you in terms of particularly some of those gaps and why women and why youth. But I'd like to go to Magdalene. Because I feel like with the work, for example, Magdalene, that you do, you're targeting and addressing the same groups, women and youth. So the first question is why women and youth, but also speaking about the association of countrywide hubs, which is really a network of all the hubs working around the country. And for the first time, we're hearing people who are not just from Nairobi. So why, first of all, why was the Association of Countrywide Hubs set up? And what are some of the unique challenges for entrepreneurs outside of the capitals? And some people even claim that Nairobi is overserved. So tell us, why the countrywide hub networks? What are some of the unique challenges that are there for entrepreneurs working in secondary cities and rural settings? And what are some of the things that you're doing to address this? And maybe later, if we have time, does some of what Bernard Band is saying resonate with you in terms of addressing that segment, women and youth?
Right. Yeah. So you talk about the why women and youth first. So from Eldo Hub side, I'm the executive director, and it's an organization based in Eldoret. And we are focusing on youth and women because we see the potential in young people, but also we look at, the number, the number of young people. We have a huge potential among the young people we need to leverage on that. That's a very big number of workforce that we need to leverage on as a country, and also more so in Africa, because it is estimated that, or in Africa, because it is estimated that by 2030, the young people under 25 will represent, I think, a quarter of the world population. That's according to some statistics. So that means that this is a group of young people that we really, really, really need to work on. And I'm really happy that this project is addressing that. And of course, women, because we really need to support women. There are so many challenges that women face, especially in starting and growing their businesses. First is the cultural issue. Leila talked about the financial issues around women. Women are less paid, women, they save less. So sometimes they really don't have the financial capacity to even start and grow businesses. And in addition, the VC, the funding, it's around the 2% goes to women-led startups. So that's a whole we really need to work on. I know when it comes to urban areas like the capital city, you will not realize that because there's a lot of progress which has been made. Here we have almost a balance. But when you go outside Nairobi, you'll realize there is a lot of challenges which women face and it needs to be addressed. And sometimes also we need to get out of just conferences in Nairobi and take it to the women, where the need is. And that's also what we are addressing as the Association of Countrywide Innovation Hubs, which is a network which brings together all innovation hubs in the country with a focus of innovations in rural and peri-urban centers. So we started with that idea in mind. If you look at, there is a mapping report which was launched by the president last year or this year, and it was in partnership with the UNDP and Konza Technopolis and Association of Countrywide. So we established that there are about over 70 innovation hubs in the capital city, and then 100 others outside Nairobi. So that means the 47, there are some counties who do not have that innovation hub. So we started with the fact that, we don't have enough support outside Nairobi. And some of us, we grew up in the rural areas, and we came to Nairobi to look for greener pastures. When we came here, we realized that, so many young people had opportunities to work in the innovation hub, to get mentored, training, and all the support that they need, something which our young people in the villages do not have, and even the peri-urban centers. So we looked at and identify some of the people who are working on different initiatives across the country and see, what about if we come together and see how we can collaborate. I think there's been a lot of discussions around collaboration in this panel. What about if we come together? We can actually create more impact. We can build each other's capacity. And that's how the association was built, because we wanted to see ways in which we can better support innovations outside the capital city. But also at the same time, how can we, this is a unique population, even tech and digitization and all that, we still need to work on a tailored approach, which Ian mentioned. We cannot just pick what is working in Silicon Valley and think that this is going to work in Kisumu or this is going to work in other areas. There has to be a tailored approach. And I want to give an example of the We Do project that we are partnering with GIZ, as well as ASEC, among other key stakeholders. It's a multi-stakeholder approach that we are taking. So We Do and GIZ realized that there was a lot of money which was coming from the diaspora. And most of them going into, there was no much use. It's meant for the hospital bills, etc. But so they looked at how can we leverage on this fund to be able to support entrepreneurs in Africa. So they started the We Do project, and of course the diaspora supporting the startup and entrepreneurs in Kenya, and giving them funding, and then there is a matching grant that they are given. And this approach has really worked. And maybe the government should also look at that approach to discuss very well with the We Do. So that, that's an approach that has really worked. Imagine it has created over 1,000 jobs. We've worked with 600 entrepreneurs across the country. And there's this specific lady, she's 73 years old, and she has a relative in, I think, Germany, and they keep sending money. And through the We Do project, she was able to start a business, a farming business. And from now, she no longer needs money from the relative. So I think those are some of the multi-stakeholder approach. And this is across the country, most of these entrepreneurs being outside the capital city. Thank you.
Wow. This one will not even need a 3-day workshop. This one is a 1 week, not less. and we'll probably need to go to Eldoret, because I think we have been challenged. All these meetings are happening in Nairobi. Diana, let me come back to you, because I know we will converge on some of the good points that Magdalene has just made, particularly around inclusive support, whether you're thinking about women, marginalized communities, the youth, and why it is important to address these communities. But I think the work that you're doing in terms of access to finance is important. And, just picking up also from where Laila, left off around the challenges, the challenges around access to finance. On one hand, we are hearing from financial institutions, from investors, that we have money, but your businesses are not ready. In fact, they talk as if they could literally just write you a check there and then.
It's in the pockets.
It's in the pocket. There is a lot of money, but we are not seeing what they like to call pipeline. Investment-ready businesses, businesses that they can put money into and get a return, and laugh all the way, whether to the bank or to home or to wherever. It's always the bank, right? Why are financial institutions and financiers unable to reach early stage entrepreneurs? What is the challenge? And what should initiatives such as this be doing to address that whole problem of investment readiness? And actually, is it really the problem?
That's a very loaded question, but I'll do my best to address it. So just a quick background. I have had the dubious reputation, and I say dubious because I have worked at the capital markets. We were looking for SMEs. We set up the growth enterprise market segment. What was the response? The businesses are not ready. I then went into SME investing across East Africa, looking to write checks within East Africa. What was the key thing the IC said? The businesses are not ready. I worked at an asset management firm, just a big building right across the road. Again, we were trying to get pension fund money into SMEs.
what are the things that the fund manager said? The businesses are not ready. So eventually I decided to drink my own Kool-Aid and said, let's do this SME advisory and understand what this investment readiness is all about. I think the first thing is just to realize that there's this concept that investment readiness is a means to an end, right? That we are just trying to get businesses ready so that they can raise funding. I have always held the opinion that investment readiness is really about talking to that young entrepreneur, talking to that woman entrepreneur who runs the business, for her to first understand, what's my long-term goal? If it's a relationship, where are we headed? That's what you should be asking your business. Where is this relationship headed? Am I going to grow, or am I looking to grow Pan-African? Am I just looking to ensure that I have sufficient income that can run my business? And my argument is none of these businesses is better than the other, because they all play a part in this ecosystem. So we tend, and I don't blame our focus, like the funding that's made available for this program. It comes at a cost, right? You have to go, you have to pitch, you have to say, this is the return that we're coming to give you when we invest in these areas. But it's also to realize that there are those businesses when investor readiness is to help them meet that times 10 multiple, times 20 multiple, because they leverage on tech, they're exciting, but there are also those other businesses that your ordinary brick and mortar, the businesses that maybe we have worked with on the WIDO program, where Dorothy, my business coach in Kisumu, gets on a bus, then gets on a boat, and then gets on a boda boda, which is a motorcycle, to reach that business and talk to him about why he needs to start thinking about a business model canvas, and not talk to him from a business model or business school perspective, but really just to get him to understand, before you hire, what do you want to do with this business? What are you buying your raw material at? What are you selling it at? Who are you looking to sell at? What's the plan? How are you going to think about logistics? Because even that person who's not going to do a 10x, he'll employ 2-3 people, and this will be sustainable economies. And this is where we find the bulk of the youth and the bulk of the women businesses, because we don't have enough capacity to absorb them into formal jobs. So their first foray into business is, I have an idea, I think I can make it work. And then they have all these other challenges. So when we talk about investor readiness, I think it's putting it into context. What type of investor readiness are we doing for what stage of business, right? So let's do the 10Xs, but also let's go into those rural areas. Let's go into those SMEs and say, maybe they want to do 10X, but they will be able to employ 2 people, 3 people, and there's a ripple effect to that. Let's talk about the youth-led businesses and understand they have the ideas, but they don't have the social capital. They don't know how to get into contact with people who will give them revenues, who will buy their products or buy their services, and get them thinking that other than raising money, which is what Ian was talking about, I can actually grow my business also from revenues, right? So what this program is doing is providing a means for investor readiness to cut across all these businesses. And that's how we will make a greater impact within this ecosystem. So that when I'm told by Frida, can you go to Trans Nzoia? I'm not thinking, oh God, why Trans Nzoia? Because I'll find a beautiful business. I'll love the business. It'll make sense. But I'll be worried about its ability to live long beyond maybe the support I give. So when we think about the 3 aspects, and he mentioned it, it's also about instilling a culture of, it's important to have the funding. Let's have the funding go where it is. But it's also important for these businesses to realize that at the end of the day, a revenue-funded business is always going to beat any other type of business. So in short, where is the deal pipeline? As we've said, it's not necessarily in Nairobi, it's in various areas. How do we get the ecosystem geared to provide investor readiness services to these businesses? You've mentioned it here. It's through collaboration with the countrywide hubs or even the business service providers. I don't run an accelerator. I'm a business advisory service provider, right? There's no issue with saying, look, together with what you're doing in investor readiness, here is a pool of funds. Are you able to help deploy? Are you able to help match? Use everything within the ecosystem that makes this ecosystem vibrant to provide that investor readiness. So in summary, Why is investor readiness critical? I think it's really just to ensure that in addition to helping these businesses really think about how to sustainably grow, we are going to, through this program, be providing them. Sometimes someone just needs that little extra funding to get them from milestone A to milestone B, so that at milestone B, you're attractive to an investor. Lila is putting her own personal money in a big way. I am putting my own shillings in a small way. But I realize, oh yes, 2 shillings, 3 shillings. We have business angel networks. I can see some of our members somewhere here, because we see that we can make a difference, right? But we need to help, first of all, the businesses to understand what their growth paths are, what they need to get to the next milestone. We need this catalytic funding to come alongside what people are doing in the ecosystem, so that we can move these businesses to milestones where the bigger ticket sizes of investors can say, now I'm interested, I'm going to cut that check, instead of making it warm, it'll expire in your pocket. But lastly also is to say, there are many ways and many channels within this ecosystem that people have worked through. Give business development service providers a chance also. I work with these businesses, we work together, and we've seen them hit milestones. In addition to funding through the hubs, the accelerators, hey, give us a chance. The least we can do is we'll deploy the money also. The worst that'll happen is the worst won't happen. But it's these programs like this that are able to make the difference. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much. Yes, I thought so. Thank you so much, Diana. I think I particularly like this point you make about investment readiness, as thinking beyond readying the business for investment, but thinking long term, taking the long view. Are they ready for growth? Are they ready to get customers? So that there's a narrow focus when we think about investment readiness. We are preparing you for the next guy who comes and wants to write checks. So I really, really like that piece. And then also, coming back to, we need everyone. And we need to talk a little bit more about the mechanisms that works, the mechanisms that perhaps need a little bit of tweaking, and essentially this whole idea that it is an ecosystem and every little bit of our work counts. So I'll come back, maybe just go round again in the final, because as we wrap up, with one question, which is to all of you, because I think we've done, I think, an excellent job in terms of unpacking some of the issues in the ecosystem. So maybe starting with you, Bent, just listening to the rest of the panelists, and particularly coming in with this initiative, investing in young businesses in Africa. What, in your view, what could we be doing more? Or what could we be doing differently? And by we, it could be we collectively as an ecosystem, and all this great initiatives that are, and great organizations and great work that's going to support entrepreneurs, whether it's in terms of financial or non-financial services, or any one of the ecosystem players, because again, the reason why we're talking about ecosystems, we need government. You were talking about the policy environment. We need the finance people. We need tailored business development. We need angels like Lila. Can I speak to you privately? We need everyone. So if you were to speak to any or all of this kind of ecosystem of support networks, what could we be doing more? What could we be doing differently? Or what could we be doing less of?
Thank you very much. I think spontaneously, I would say thinking about a life cycle of growing entrepreneurs. Because if we look into Kenya and many other countries, so we have investors, we have support organizations, we have the government that is now starting new approaches like the Hustler Fund to support MSMEs. There are lots of organizations in place. There are lots of initiatives in place. The donor community development partners also have a lot of initiatives. But I think what we could do probably better or more is alignment, actually, because what I see is that we still have a huge amount of different initiatives. But we were not able yet to really come up with an approach where we look into the life cycle of very young, small, micro entrepreneurs growing over time into small, medium-sized companies. And I think overall, the different approaches that you need to have in place from the government side, from the private sector, are not yet developed in a way where I would say, okay, we have really done an extremely good job.
Fantastic. Laila? What could we do more if you were to pick any actor or all of us? What could we do differently? What could we do less of?
I think I agree that for all of us, it would really be this idea of talking more, aligning more. The same way that Team EU is saying, let's streamline our activities and work together. I think the entire ecosystem could do that. The second thing would be really to work with institutions that already exist. So if we have the Nairobi Stock Exchange and they're having challenges trying to support SMEs, or you have the network of hubs, how can we just work with things that will outlive us and just build those organizations, even if we're not seeing the results today, just build their capacity. And that's not usually as exciting because you don't always see the fruits right away. So that would be another area to focus. I do think a third area is around the mentality. I'm very curious to hear more, on the side later about what this business culture initiative is about. I do think there's still a lot of work to be done. Now I speak as an investor, really talking to investees and founders especially around what their expectations should be and what really an investor can and cannot do for your business. So I think there's another pot of another set of initiatives that we could really design around that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Laila. Magdalene, same question.
All right. So I think we really have a huge population of young people, like I had mentioned. And these young people are, most of them unemployed. And we have also we need to support the young businesses. And we've been told that the MSMEs employs contributes to employment. There was a percentage which was given. So how about if we support these young businesses? And by supporting these young businesses, it means also strengthening the accelerators, incubators, and innovation hubs, because these are the people that these are the platforms that are really supporting this, providing them with the skills, giving them all that. So we need to strengthen them in terms of expertise, in terms of structures, and supporting them to be able to have the right capacity to be able to support the young businesses. Thank you.
Diana, same question.
I feel like all the nice answers have been given. So I'll do my best.
You can also you can also refuse to answer and create your new question.
We can start a revolution on this end. So I just want to mention just a personal story, just to put into context. We are entrepreneurs on this end. We run businesses, we work with other entrepreneurs. Working in this ecosystem, what helped me was that connection to Magdalene, her explaining to me what worked, what didn't, me looking at what Laila is doing from afar, as in looking at how she's run the business, and even Ian telling me, look, you cannot do this. This doesn't make sense. You'll burn your fingers. Do 1, 2, 3 things. What is all that? It's social capital. And it's them helping me think about what's the culture that I want my business to reflect at the end of the day. So, and I want to emphasize on this issue of culture and say that I'm happy to see the initiative is focusing on culture and also focusing on funding. So when the youth come through the door, let's also change our culture to be a little bit more accepting, because when you work with the youth, you're going to see many things. You're going to have to prepare yourself to see many things. And we've worked with the youth, people who are exciting, and he tells you, I want to start a coconut yogurt. And you're like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Why? Oh, there are so many coconuts, and this is a true story. And the next thing you know, he's saying, before COVID, yeah, I went to KIE, Kenya Industrial Estates. He was given space. He got his yogurts into current provision stores. Then COVID happened, so he doesn't have funds to come back on, right? Then he comes back later, he's like, I am reviving, help me look for money. And half my fear is not that the business is bad. It's actually a brilliant idea for those of us who have lactose issues. But it's me fearing that when he comes to a panel of IC members, or he's talking to the investors, what an investor might hear is risk, more risk, hide the checkbook. But it's for me to look back and think, how do I make the process one that embraces him and his uniqueness? Today, Lubia got funding of about 34,000 euros, not a huge ticket, but from UNCAP. And the reason that we were able to work with him was there was some result-based financing scheme we were part of. So helping him meant we won't get maybe funded up front, but on his success. And it worked, right? And part of that journey really was not that the business was not good, it was for the infrastructure in place to realize that this is what the youth entrepreneur looks like. This is what he sounds like. Beneath all that craziness and all that risk is someone with a very solid business model. But do I want to leave Lubia now? No, he needs me more than ever, because suddenly his bank has gone from 0 to 34,000 euros. And I'm thinking, I see him on LinkedIn and I am replying. I'm replying to you in revenue focus, as in that's what I want you to think about, So that's a hand holding he will need. Don't try and start the foundation, brilliant idea, but no. We need to make those revenues because there's an investor expecting return. So that's for us, I think, is a challenge. I'll say, if we are opening it up for the youth, let's get ready to receive the youth. Accept them as they are. Yeah, thanks.
Dana, you're going to make some people rethink their decisions. Thanks. Ian, same question.
Yeah, and I think we need to start thinking long-term in a way that we typically don't do. Because if the game plan really is that we will have young people on an entrepreneurial journey, they will fail, they'll stumble, they'll fail, they will stumble. If we really want to make this work, we need to perhaps have a 10-year approach to this. And this is something that often we know those who are funding this don't have, or they may have, but then on the way politics changes happens, and then these plans don't really work out the way. So really, I think the encouragement is to figure out what would that 10-year plan look like. Well, we know we're building a pipeline, we're building a generation, we're building something going forward that has youth that want to start small business, youth that actually graduate slowly to become the next big thing. But that's an approach that we really haven't seen, where we're thinking that's the young guy we're picking today, or the young lady we're picking today. That is because we think that in 10 years, that is where they could be. But we also accept that they will fail. That also means there will be money lost, there will be initiatives lost. And maybe sometimes we are overemphasizing only looking at businesses and not the entrepreneur or the people involved in businesses. That's the capital that we can reinvest in, we can bring forward. The business might be lost, entrepreneur isn't lost. That also means if we invest proper in our people, then we are investing into the future as well.